Ethan Cole stood at the humming gate and felt very small. The sky estate rose above him like a glass cliff. Light moved under the walls like veins. Terraces floated, thin as wings. The air smelled clean, almost too clean, like a hospital dreamed by a rich star merchant. He held his contract with both hands. It said house assistant. It did not say nerves, but his hands were shaking anyway. An Orbide steward drone drifted down from the arch. Its voice was calm, almost kind. "Welcome to the Vera estate, Mr. Cole. Please proceed." The gate slid open without a touch. A soft tone rang, like a string plucked in the air. He walked the long curve of the drive. Gravel did not crunch. It hovered a finger above the ground, held by hidden fields. Ethan tried not to stare, but he stared. He had worked in field hospitals on orbiters. He had worked in a small biomechanics lab above a noodle shop. He had never seen a home do this much without trying. The doors opened before he knocked. Cool air met him. The foyer glowed with steady light. Paintings moved, not with animation, but with breath. A river painting sighed. A mountain painting held its snow. Lady Vera did not appear. Her portrait did, tall and still. Deep dusk skin. Silver-white hair. Violet eyes that followed you only if you thought about them. The drone spoke again. "Lady Vera is in council. Please, this way." Corridors slid past. Ethan felt watched, but not in a cruel way. More like a museum guard that respected the art and feared the fire code. He reached his room. It was larger than his old apartment. There was a desk, a whole wall of tools, and a view of cloud lanes like white roads. He unpacked. A field medic kit. A battered notebook. A pen that wrote, even upside down. He had a doctorate he never finished, a grant he lost, and a promise he made to himself on a bad night. Do work that matters, even if no one sees. The drone returned. "Miss Mira is ready." Her room faced the sky. Books stacked in neat towers. Holograms of planets spun slowly above a bed that looked like a cloud and probably cost more than a shuttle. The girl by the window had hair like bright metal threads in water. Her chair hovered. Soft blue skin. Clear eyes that missed nothing. "You're the new one," she said. The last one thought neurons are wires. He was wrong. Wires do not glow. Ethan smiled. "Ethan Cole. I try not to be wrong about glowing things." She nodded at a sleek frame leaning on a stand. "They say this will help me walk. It does not. It argues with me and loses." He stepped closer to the exosleeve. It was top-tier tech. Light. Strong. Too smart and too dumb at the same time. He saw the problem like a bright line. Human neural maps. Human timing. Human silence. Cerulean nerves did not stay silent. They lit. They sang. They carried charge and light together, not one after the other. "Who tuned this?" he asked. "Doctors from 3 worlds," Mira said. "All very sure." He kept his voice even. "It listens for one language, and you speak another." She grinned. "Yes." Finally, the door near the bookshelf opened. Lady Vera entered without hurry. The room seemed to adjust to her, as if the house breathed with her steps. Up close, her presence was pressure and calm at the same time. "Mr. Cole," she said. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for hiring me," he said. "I hired you for care," she said. "Not for experiments." "Understood," he said, and meant it. But his eyes slid, just once, to the sleeve. Vera noticed. Of course she did. "You will manage Myra's studies and therapy," she said. "You will report concerns to me or to the steward. Dinner at 19. That is all." She turned to go, then paused. Her eyes softened by a degree. "Mira, no tricks today. Only small ones," Mira said. Lady Vera left. The room exhaled. Mira rolled closer to the sleeve. "Do you know why my mother stayed on Earth?" she asked. "Why?" "She says Earth makes people urgent," Mira said. "Ceruleans live long. We take our time. Humans do not. She thinks urgency can save a life." Ethan looked at the glove ports, the spinal plate, the node lattice. He did not touch it. He imagined a bridge between light and electricity. Not override. Translate. Ask the body and wait for the answer in its own voice. He heard himself say, "I might be able to fix this." Myra's eyes went very bright. "Then we will try." "Careful," he said. "I said might." "Careful," she echoed. "I said will." He laughed, a short surprised sound. "First, your routine. Then we think." They spent the afternoon with slow, simple tasks. Balance games. Breath counts. Easy strength. He learned her humor. She learned his patience. The window turned gold as the sun slid under a thin cloud. After he left her room, he did not go to dinner. Not yet. He went to his desk. He closed the wall screen. He took out the battered notebook. He drew a circle for a node. He drew rays for light. He wrote 4 words under the circle. Listen before you speak. Somewhere in the walls, a hidden sensor blinked awake, watched him write, and sent a whisper down a wire. Far away, a midnight blue hand opened to read it. The gate outside hummed again. Ethan did not hear it. He kept drawing, and the house kept watching. A story had started. It would not stop now. The next morning began with a whisper. Ethan woke to soft bells hidden in the walls. The room adjusted its brightness when his eyes opened, the ceiling blooming with a pale sunrise. Everything in the Vera mansion moved quietly, as if afraid to disturb its mistress. He sat up, rubbing his neck. He hadn't slept much. His dreams were full of diagrams, lines, nodes, and light flowing like blood. He had drawn half the night, and his notebook was covered in messy sketches of circuits that looked like constellations. The steward drone, Pax 9, appeared outside his door. "Breakfast is served, Mr. Cole. Lady Vera requests your presence." He sighed, straightened his collar, and followed. The hallways shimmered faintly, reflecting his face in the glassy walls, each reflection showing him from a slightly different angle. It felt like the house was learning him, studying how he breathed, how he walked, what he thought about. The dining hall was wide and empty except for Lady Vera at the far end. She stood beside a long window that looked out on floating gardens. Her expression, as always, was calm and unreadable. "Mr. Cole," she said without turning. "How are you finding the estate?" Ethan hesitated. "It's alive, ma'am. Like it's watching." Her lips curved slightly. "It is. The Vera estate is one of the few homes on Earth that carries a sentient architecture license. It listens to emotion, not words." "That sounds comforting," he said, though it didn't. She turned now, her violet eyes gleaming. "It depends who you are." Then, as if changing subjects, she gestured to the table. "Sit. Eat. My daughter tells me you're already discussing neural physics with her." He blinked. "She told you that?" "She tells me everything," Vera said, sitting opposite him. "And yet, you seem to be the first person who speaks to her like she's not broken." Her tone wasn't cold, just tired. The kind of tired that has lasted years. Ethan met her gaze and said, "She's not broken, Lady Vera. She's brilliant. Just misunderstood by her own machines." That earned him the faintest smile before she rose again. "We shall see. Do your duties well, Mr. Cole. And remember, hope is a dangerous thing to give a child." After she left, he sat in silence, her words echoing. Dangerous. Maybe. But necessary. Mira was waiting for him in her study, surrounded by floating holobooks and miniature drones that carried glass vials of colored light. She looked up from her console and smiled. "You survived breakfast." "Impressive." Ethan chuckled. "Barely. Your mom doesn't waste time." "She never does," Mira said. "Except when she's sad. Then she watches the old ship logs. My father's voice is still saved in them." The air turned quiet. Ethan looked around at the small lab space, noticing something he hadn't before: old burn marks on one of the walls, hidden behind a tapestry. The kind left by plasma fire. He didn't ask. She didn't explain. Instead, he gestured to her chair. "Let's get to work. I want to run some diagnostics on the exosleeve." As he connected his scanner, the readings flickered strangely. Human tech didn't know how to see cerulean nerve patterns. The data came out as static and bursts of light, like a heartbeat lost in translation. He took notes carefully, sketching what he saw in simple circles and arrows. "Your nerves talk with light," he murmured. "The exosleeve hears in electricity. They need a translator, not a controller." Mira grinned. "You mean like a friendship bracelet for my spine?" "Exactly," he said, smiling. "One that listens before it acts." They worked together for hours. She showed him how ceruleans used emotion to control simple machines, a unique trait of her people. Anger could overload circuits. Calmness stabilized power flow. It was strange, but elegant. At one point, Ethan looked up from his sketches. "You ever think the world doesn't want to fix you because it's easier to pity you?" Mira stared at him for a long moment. "All the time," she said quietly. He nodded, adjusting a wire. "Then let's prove them wrong." Outside, thunder rolled across the distant sky. The mansion dimmed for a second, reacting to the storm's charge. Ethan didn't notice the small drone in the corner, its lens focusing silently on him. A soft red light blinked once, then went dark again. By the time evening came, he had a rough plan, a hybrid neural light interface, something no cerulean lab had ever built. Mira yawned but refused to stop. "We're close," she said, her silver hair floating slightly as she smiled. "Close to trouble," Ethan said. "If your mother finds out I'm experimenting, she'll throw me out." "She won't," Mira said. "She needs hope, even if she doesn't admit it." Ethan looked at her, the same fierce spark in her eyes that he'd seen in every soldier he'd ever patched up. The will to fight when logic said surrender. He thought about Lady Vera's warning, "Hope is dangerous," and realized something deeper. Danger wasn't the problem. Hopelessness was. That night, while the rain whispered against the glass, Ethan sat alone at his desk. He drew the first real blueprint. It looked more like a constellation than a machine. He labeled it Lumen Bridge. Far away, inside the mansion's data core, someone unseen opened a private feed. The camera over Ethan's desk blinked awake. A voice whispered in a static-filled language. "He's starting. Prepare the file for Draxon Vor." The mansion lights flickered once, as if holding its breath. And Ethan, unaware of the eyes watching, kept drawing. The beginning of a miracle by the time the second sun set. One reel, one reflection in the mansion's mirrored domes. Ethan's nerves felt like live wires. Pax 9, the steward drone, had delivered a message that morning. "Lady Vera requests your presence for dinner in the glass garden. Formal attire required." He wasn't sure what was worse, the word formal or the fact that she had never invited him to dine privately before. Now, as he stood before a mirror that could probably detect his heart rate, Ethan tried to smooth his collar. His reflection shimmered, rippled, and whispered the word breathe. The mansion was kind, in its strange way. He just wished he knew which parts of it reported to Vera, and which didn't. The glass garden looked like a dream built on light. Crystal walls curved around a floating table, vines glowing faintly beneath them. Bioluminescent petals drifted in the air like lazy fireflies. Beyond the glass, the night stretched wide over the clouds, pierced by distant city lights below. Lady Vera stood at the far end, her back turned. Her dress was woven from something that moved like water and shimmered like stars. She looked like part of the architecture itself, flawless, untouchable. Ethan cleared his throat softly. "You asked for me?" She turned. Her violet eyes held 1,000 unreadable stories. "Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. Please sit." He obeyed, carefully, aware of every sound. The floating table adjusted its height automatically to match his posture. "I've been reviewing your activity logs," she said, pouring a luminous blue drink into 2 glasses. His pulse spiked. "Activity logs. The estate monitors the energy distribution in every room. I noticed an unusual amount of power routed to your quarters. Late nights. Equipment use outside of standard duties." Her tone wasn't angry, just precise. "Would you like to explain?" Ethan hesitated. "I study patterns. Neural behavior. It helps me understand Myra's reactions." "You're not a licensed cerulean neuroengineer." "No," he said carefully. "But I am a human who spent half his life fixing what others called impossible." A long silence stretched between them. Then Vera's lips curved slightly. "You speak boldly for someone I could dismiss with one sentence." Ethan met her gaze. "You could, but you won't, because you've already seen it." She tilted her head. "Seen what?" "The change in Mira. Her focus. Her energy. She's not just happier, she's alive again. For the first time, her composure cracked. Just slightly. You think I haven't noticed?" "I think you pretend not to," he said gently. The air between them shifted. The glass walls around the garden dimmed, as if responding to tension. Vera set her glass down and stepped closer. Her scent was faint, like metal rain and warmth. "You humans," she murmured. "So sure that emotion fixes everything." "Not everything," he said. "Just the things worth saving." Her eyes softened, but only for a heartbeat. Then the mask slid back into place. "You're reckless, Mr. Cole. Hopeful in a way that makes me uneasy. I'll take uneasy over hopeless any day." The faintest smile ghosted across her lips. "My late husband said something similar. He admired your kind. Said humans lived fast, but burned bright." Ethan swallowed. "He sounds like someone worth admiring." "He was," she said quietly. Then, after a pause, and he was killed for it. Ethan froze. The shuttle crash? Vera's gaze went distant, unfocused. That's what the report said. A malfunction in the drive core. But the truth was buried. His research threatened people with power, men who turned science into currency. Myra's accident wasn't collateral damage. It was the warning they wanted me to hear. Her voice trembled for the first time, barely. Then it steadied again. Since that day, I learned to live without faith. To expect betrayal dressed as kindness. So forgive me, Mr. Cole, if I hesitate to believe in miracles. Ethan's chest tightened. He could feel her pain like static in the air. Then let me give you a reason not to. Vera looked at him sharply. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe your husband's work wasn't lost, he said. Maybe it's still alive, here, in your daughter's hands. In the light inside her nerves. If I can understand it. If I can rebuild the bridge between her body and her will. She stepped closer. Her eyes glowed faintly, violet deepening to indigo. You think you can succeed where the finest minds of two worlds failed. Ethan didn't blink. I think humans fail differently. That earned an actual laugh. A soft, musical sound he hadn't expected. It filled the space like warm light. You're impossible, she said, shaking her head. So I've been told. She turned away, looking out at the city below. For a moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, Mira says you make her forget the chair. Ethan felt his throat tighten. She makes me forget the rules. The words hung in the air. Dangerous. True. Vera faced him again. The soft glow under her skin brightened, the cerulean sign of emotion she couldn't hide. You should go, she said finally, voice softer now. Before the house starts gossiping. Ethan rose. The house already knows everything. She smiled at that, faint but real. Then let it wonder. As he turned to leave, she called after him. Mr. Cole. He stopped. If you intend to chase the impossible, do it quietly. Some ears in this house don't belong to me. He nodded once. Understood. When he reached the hallway, he felt a pulse of warmth on the back of his neck. The house lights flickered, then steadied. A single drone in the corner reactivated, its lens narrowing on him. Lady Vera's warning echoed in his mind. Some ears in this house don't belong to me. Back in his quarters, he locked the door and pulled out his notebook. The new title scrawled across the page read, Project Lumen Bridge, Phase 2, Silence and Signal. And far above, unseen in the black of orbit, a cerulean relay station blinked to life. A transmission began to record, marked with his name. Ethan Cole had just made himself visible to the wrong kind of galaxy. The storm rolled in before dawn, silent and electric. Lightning crawled across the horizon, painting silver scars over the clouds. Ethan didn't sleep. He had worked through the night, his table buried under coils, sensors, and a glowing spinal interface that looked more like art than medicine. The Lumen Bridge was almost ready. Mira entered his workshop just as the rain started to fall. Her chair hovered an inch off the ground, humming like a cat's purr. You haven't eaten again, she said, arms folded. He smiled faintly. Neither have you. I'm 12, she said. I'm allowed to be dramatic. You're an adult. You should know better. Ethan chuckled and turned the device toward her. Do you trust me? She didn't hesitate. Completely. That answer hit him harder than any compliment. He cleared his throat. Then today we try. The medical chamber was quiet except for the low hum of the mansion's systems. Outside, the rain blurred the view into moving glass. The machines inside glowed soft blue, waiting. Myra's usual exosleeve lay discarded on a table, a relic of failure. Ethan held the new design carefully, his hands steady despite the storm in his chest. The Lumen Bridge was smaller than the old exoskeleton, lighter and alive with faint threads of light that pulsed like veins. It listens, he told her. That's what the others got wrong. They tried to command your nerves. This one learns their rhythm. Mira tilted her head. So it's not a machine. It's a translator. Exactly. She grinned. Let's speak to my legs, then. He fitted the device along her spine, each node sliding into place with a soft click. The final piece connected near her neck, an interface crystal that shimmered when it detected thought. Ethan stepped back. Okay, close your eyes. Don't move yet. Just think about standing. She breathed slowly. The sensors glowed brighter, color shifting from blue to gold. His tablet displayed a cascade of signals. Wild, chaotic, then slowly aligning. "Come on," he whispered. "Talk to her." And then, movement. Not much. Just a twitch. But it was hers. Mira gasped. "I felt that. Ethan, I felt that." He checked the readings. Signal is stable. The interface is syncing perfectly. Okay, think about standing. The sound that followed wasn't mechanical. It was alive, a rising hum, soft like music. The bioluminescent veins along Myra's legs glowed in response. Slowly, like something remembering itself, her body straightened. Ethan held his breath. Her feet touched the floor. Both of them. "I'm standing," she whispered, eyes wide. Then, louder, her voice breaking with joy. "I'm standing." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "You're not just standing. You're winning." She laughed through tears. The mansion lights brightened, responding to her emotions like the house itself was celebrating. Can I try walking?" she asked. "Small steps," he said. "Let the system follow your thoughts." She nodded, eyes glistening, and took her first careful step. Then another. The machine adjusted, smoother each time, until her movement was no longer assisted, it was natural. Mira spun in a slow, uncertain circle, then clapped her hands. "It's like learning a song I already knew." Ethan laughed, then wiped his eyes before she could see. By evening, they had practiced until she could cross the entire chamber without stumbling. Exhausted but glowing, she leaned against the wall. "Mom comes home tonight," she said breathlessly. Ethan nodded, 1,000 thoughts racing. "We'll show her when you're ready." "I'm ready now," Mira said, fierce and certain. 3 years, Ethan. I've been ready for 3 years. He couldn't argue. Together, they planned every detail. Where she'd stand, what she'd say, how he'd pretend he didn't know anything. When the sun sank, the rain stopped. The mansion's floors gleamed with reflections of the storm's aftermath. "Pax," 9 announced softly, "Lady Vera's shuttle has entered atmosphere." Myra's hands shook slightly as Ethan adjusted the hem of her long dress, hiding the glowing spinal frame. "You're sure it's stable?" she whispered. He smiled. "It's stronger than either of us." The door slid open. Lady Vera stepped in, her usual composure slightly cracked from exhaustion. "Mira? Ethan? I've brought dinner." Her voice stopped. Mira stood in the center of the hall. No chair, no machine, just her, tall and trembling with emotion. "Mom," she whispered. "Look." The tray slipped from Vera's hands. Glass shattered against the marble. She froze, breath caught in her throat. Mira took one step forward, then another. The lights in the hall followed her movement like a trail of stars. "I can walk." Lady Vera's eyes, filled with tears faster than her mind, could form words. She stumbled forward, then dropped to her knees as Mira reached her. They collided in a desperate embrace, mother and daughter clinging to each other as if the universe might vanish if they let go. Behind them, Ethan stood still, his heart pounding so loud it drowned out the storm. Vera finally looked up at him, disbelief and wonder warring in her eyes. How did you?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The mansion's walls pulsed with soft light, recording the moment like sacred memory. Somewhere deep inside the estate's data core, hidden systems blinked to life, marking this day in its archives. The day the light answered back, the next morning, the mansion felt alive in a new way. Every light glowed warmer. Every wall shimmered softer. It was as if the house itself had felt Myra's first steps and decided to celebrate quietly. But beneath the beauty, something darker moved, like static under silk. Ethan felt it before he understood it. The servants smiled more, but their eyes flicked toward him a little too often. Pax 9's voice had gained a faint delay, a half-second pause before every answer. And Lady Vera hadn't spoken to him since last night's miracle. He stood in his workshop, staring at the deactivated exosleeve. The Lumen Bridge prototype hummed faintly in standby mode, its nodes still glowing from Myra's neural imprint. He was proud, yes, but also uneasy. He'd touched a mystery bigger than tech, something that felt alive. The door hissed open. Lady Vera entered without a word. No formal greeting. No hint of last night's tears. Her expression was the same calm mask he had seen on their first day. "Mira is in her garden," she said. "She insists on walking there every hour." Ethan smiled. "She's earned it." Vera didn't smile back. She walked slowly around his desk, scanning the scattered schematics and sketches. "You hid this project from me." He hesitated. "I wanted to be sure before I showed you anything." You'd seen too many false hopes. False hope is still hope, she said quietly. And I decide what risks my daughter takes, not my employee. Her tone wasn't angry. It was surgical. Precise. The kind that cuts clean. I understand, Ethan said softly. But if I'd told you sooner, would you have let me finish? Her eyes flickered, a rare sign of uncertainty. Perhaps not. They stood in silence for a long moment. Rain tapped against the glass. Outside, Myra's laughter echoed faintly from the courtyard, a sound the mansion hadn't heard in years. Finally, Vera said, "You've given her a gift I thought lost forever. For that, you have my gratitude." But, Ethan said, her gaze turned sharp again. But miracles draw attention. He frowned. From who? She walked to the window, watching the clouds shift across the horizon. When my husband died, the shuttle's black box data was erased before the authorities arrived. Officially, it was a mechanical failure. Unofficially, she paused. Someone made sure I stopped asking questions. Ethan's stomach tightened. You think it's connected to what I built? I think, she said, turning to face him, that you've created something others will kill to possess. The air between them thickened. Outside, thunder rolled again. Vera stepped closer, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. You don't understand the reach of cerulean trade families, Mr. Cole. The technology you made is more than a medical device. It's a weapon. Control over the nervous system. Instant response interfaces. Entire armies would bid for it. He shook his head. It's for her. For people like her. That's all. Intentions don't matter, she said softly. Only what power decides they mean. For the first time, Ethan saw fear in her eyes. Not of him, but for him. That night, the mansion's systems flickered again. The lights dimmed, then stabilized. Pax, 9 appeared at his doorway, silent as ever. Everything okay, Pax? Ethan asked. Yes, Mr. Cole, the drone replied. Just a brief network sync. But Ethan noticed the faint glimmer under its plating. A tracer beacon, cerulean design. Someone had reprogrammed it. He waited until the drone floated away, then slipped out of his quarters. The corridors were dark except for the pulse of embedded floor lights guiding him toward the garden. Mira was there, asleep under the shelter dome. The lumen bridge still attached to her spine glowed like a heartbeat. She looked peaceful, unafraid. Ethan crouched beside her, watching her breathe. We did it, he whispered. We really did it. Then something caught his eye, tiny indentations along the side of the interface crystal. Not his design. Not human. A code marker, cerulean. It wasn't just monitoring her neural data, it was transmitting it. Someone had accessed his system. His throat went dry. He followed the faint signal on his tablet, tracing it through the estate's internal grid. It led not to the public communication hub, but to a hidden terminal buried in the mansion's core network, a terminal labeled V7, encrypted under Lady Vera's authority. But it wasn't her hand that last accessed it. The timestamp was just an hour ago. User ID, Envor Prime. Ethan's blood ran cold. The name was whispered in research circles, a cerulean industrialist known for stealing patents, sabotaging labs, and acquiring geniuses who didn't sell their work. So this was it. The real reason the mansion always felt watched. Someone had been here all along, buried in its circuits. He found Vera standing by the observatory window, watching lightning crawl through the clouds. She didn't turn as he entered. I found the signal, Ethan said quietly. It's been transmitting data to someone named Draxenvor. I know, she said. He froze. You what? Her shoulders sagged slightly. He's been watching since before you arrived. I let him. It was the only way to keep him from suspecting I was rebuilding what my husband died for. Ethan stared at her. So you knew the mansion was compromised? I knew it was haunted, she said bitterly. By greed. By power. By him. She turned now, eyes fierce. But when Mira stood, when she walked, the moment was worth every risk. He stepped closer. Then we stop him. We shut the system down. We hide her before he. Vera shook her head. You don't understand. He doesn't just want the device, Ethan. He wants you. He thinks your human brain cracked the code ceruleans couldn't. That makes you valuable and dangerous. The lightning flashed, and for a split second, her skin glowed brighter, revealing the intricate patterns of her species' emotion light. It pulsed with something between fear and resolve. Ethan swallowed hard. Then he'll have to come here to get me. Vera's expression darkened. He already is. The mansion lights flickered violently, and an alarm whispered through the halls, a low, steady hum that only the walls could hear. Through the glass ceiling, 3 dark shapes cut through the storm. Cerulean transport crafts, silent, sleek, and closing fast. Vera's voice was calm, but sharp. They've come for the bridge. Ethan's jaw clenched. Then we show them what happens when they underestimate a human. The thunder roared above, drowning out the sound of the ship's landing. The night that had begun with a miracle was about to end in war. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the mansion still dripped with the memory of the storm. Every surface shone with quiet reflections, like the house was pretending to sleep. But Ethan knew better. It was awake, watching, waiting. The security monitors in his quarters flickered once, then turned black. A quiet pulse vibrated through the walls, faint but deliberate. Not thunder, not the wind. They're here, Ethan whispered. He moved fast, grabbing his jacket, a small EMP tool, and the portable core of the Lumen Bridge. Its faint glow cast a halo of gold across his hands. He turned to the wall speaker. Pax 9, initiate lockdown protocol. The drone's voice answered, calm but wrong. Lockdown request denied. External override detected. Override from where? Ethan asked sharply. The drone hesitated. Internal server. Code signature matches Lady Vera. Ethan froze. His mind raced. Either she was forcing a manual bypass, or someone had cloned her signature. Then a voice came softly from behind him. Ethan. He spun around. Lady Vera stood in the doorway, cloaked in silver light. You have to move Mira now, she said. They've cut through the outer defenses. How many? 6 at least. Maybe more. Trained cerulean retrieval agents. Vor's men. Ethan swore under his breath. He didn't waste any time. Vera stepped closer. I've disabled the mansion's core link. It will look offline to them for a few minutes, no more. He nodded. That's enough. They ran down the corridor, their footsteps muffled by the hum of the house. Holographic portraits watched as they passed, ancient faces glowing faintly, as if aware of the danger. When they reached Myra's room, the door opened automatically. She was already awake, standing unsteadily beside her bed in her glowing exosuit. Her silver hair was pulled into a braid, and despite the fear in her eyes, she smiled. I heard the alarms, she said. We're not running, are we? Ethan crouched beside her, checking the neural interface. Not yet. First we make them regret coming. Myra's grin widened. That's very human of you. The plan was simple, because it had to be. Ethan rerouted the estate's backup generators, creating a false heat signature in the West Wing. The intruders would assume that was the lab, and head straight into the trap. He turned the garden dome into a decoy hub, lacing the glass structure with microfield emitters that could generate a flash of electromagnetic pulse strong enough to drop cerulean tech for several minutes. Meanwhile, Myra's real exosuit core, her bridge, was disconnected and stored in a shielded case near the library, where no scanner could detect it. Lady Vera watched him work, her usual control stripped away by urgency. You've done this before, she said quietly. Ethan didn't look up. Different world. Same kind of monsters. They didn't have to wait long. The first sound was a low thrum, like a ship's heartbeat. Then, the shimmer of cloaking fields dissolving near the front hall. Figures appeared, tall, sharp-featured ceruleans wearing combat suits that glowed faintly blue under the skin. Their movements were exact, practiced. Predators who'd done this many times before. Ethan and Vera watched from the upper balcony, hidden behind a wall of shifting glass. He counted 6, as predicted. One carried a scanning module shaped like a coiled shell. The leader spoke in cerulean. Ethan couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Command. They're searching for Myra's signal, Vera whispered. Good, Ethan said. Let them find it. Below them, the intruders moved through the corridor, following the false data trail to the West Wing. When they reached the garden dome, the lead soldier raised his hand. Heat signatures confirmed. His translator rasped. Target chamber ahead. Ethan pressed a small switch on his wrist device. Welcome to Earth. The dome flared like a dying star. A pulse of light and energy rippled outward, silent but devastating. Every cerulean system within 50 meters went dark. Weapons shorted. Scanners froze. Suits flickered. The soldiers staggered, paralyzed mid-step as their implants failed. Vera stared. What did you? Neuroflux pulse, Ethan said. It's non-lethal. just scrambles their light path synapses for a few minutes. You made that. He smirked faintly. Improvised. Humans are good at desperate solutions. They moved quickly. Vera led Mira through the private passage toward the hangar bay, while Ethan stayed behind to make sure no one followed. He crouched beside one of the fallen ceruleans. The man's eyes moved, conscious but unable to speak. The faint bioluminescent veins under his skin pulsed erratically. Ethan leaned close. "Tell your boss I don't sell what I build." He stood, grabbing the fallen man's communicator and pocketing it. As he turned, something caught his eye. An insignia burned into the soldier's glove. Not just for his crest. The trade commissions. His heart skipped. "Vera," he shouted through the comm, "they're not just mercenaries. They're official." Her voice came back sharp. "Then it's worse than I thought. They have protection." A door behind him burst open. A seventh intruder, massive, armored, unaffected by the pulse. A hybrid unit. Ethan barely dodged as a bolt of plasma seared the wall. He rolled, grabbed a fallen weapon, and fired back. The pulse cannon crackled, barely scratching the hybrid's armor. The alien advanced. "Surrender, human," its translator boomed. "You will not be harmed." Ethan gritted his teeth. "You've never met a human, have you?" He triggered the backup EMP grenade on his belt and threw it. The explosion of light filled the room, knocking the hybrid backward into a column. Ethan sprinted through the smoke, lungs burning, vision blurred. He reached the hangar just as the blast doors were opening. Vera stood at the shuttle controls, Mira strapped into a seat beside her. "You're late," Mira said breathlessly. "Traffic," Ethan said, climbing aboard. The shuttle engines roared to life, shaking the floor. Through the glass viewport, he saw figures gathering below, Vor's soldiers, recovering, regrouping. The mansion's defense grid was crippled. They wouldn't hold long. "Get us out of here," Ethan said. Vera's hands flew across the controls, but the ship didn't lift. The screen flashed red, remote dock lock engaged. "Vor's override," she hissed. "He's jamming the launch sequence from orbit." Ethan's mind raced. "Then we bring the fight to him." He yanked the Lumen Bridge's core from his bag, connected it to the shuttle's power node, and started rerouting. Vera stared. "That could destroy the engine. Or it could give us a jump strong enough to break the jam." He looked at Mira. "You trust me?" Her eyes shone, fierce and bright. "Always." He hit the switch. The shuttle screamed as energy surged through its systems. The lights in the hangar burst like stars. For a heartbeat, the ship was surrounded by a halo of gold, the same light that had flowed through Myra's nerves. Then, with a thunderclap that shook the sky, it launched upward, tearing through the clouds like lightning reborn. Below, the mansion flickered once, then went dark. As the earth fell away beneath them, Ethan slumped back in his seat, heart pounding. Mira looked out the window at the receding clouds. "Where are we going?" Ethan met Vera's gaze. "To finish this." Draxon Vor wanted the bridge. He looked at the glowing core pulsing beside him. "Now we'll show him what happens when humanity builds one." Far above, through the silent void, a cerulean command cruiser waited, its weapons charged, its sensors locked. And for the first time, they were not hunting a human. They were about to face one that the shuttle ripped through the clouds like a wound of light, leaving Earth behind in streaks of blue and gold. Inside, alarms screamed and panels flickered, but Ethan didn't slow down. Every second counted. Every breath felt borrowed. Lady Vera gripped the pilot's yoke, her knuckles pale beneath her azure skin. "They're cruisers above orbit," she said, voice taut. "We'll reach them in 2 minutes." "Good," Ethan muttered, working over the console. "Let's ruin someone's night." The Lumen Bridge's glowing core pulsed beside him, connected directly into the shuttle's navigation feed. It wasn't designed for this, but neither were humans. Mira watched from the co-pilot's seat, her eyes bright with both awe and fear. "Ethan, you're overloading the systems." He smiled without looking up. "That's kind of my specialty." The blackness of orbit unfolded before them, a vast sea of silent stars. And there, against that endless backdrop, waited the enemy. A cerulean command cruiser shaped like a blade, its hull etched with pulsing veins of violet energy. Draxon Vor's ship. It looked like a cathedral made for conquest. "Power readings rising," Vera said. "He's locking weapons." Ethan leaned closer to the glass. "So he wants to make this official." A voice cut through the comms, smooth and cruel. "Lady Vera." How very human of you to run when caught. Vor's face appeared on the hollow display, dark blue skin, silver eyes, and a smile that could slice through steel. You've taken something that belongs to the Trade Commission, he continued. Surrender the prototype and your human accomplice, and I will let your daughter live. Myra's small voice broke the silence. You don't get to decide who lives. Vor's gaze snapped to her. Child, you walk only because of what I built. Ethan's jaw tightened. No, she walks because of what you failed to understand. Vor's smile vanished. Then let's test whose understanding lasts longer. The cruiser's cannons lit up. Brace, Vera shouted. The first blast struck the shuttle's shields, rattling every bolt. Ethan's console exploded in sparks. Gravity cut for a moment, and they were thrown against their restraints. The second blast followed, closer, angrier. The ship screamed. Shields down to 30%. Vera yelled. Ethan grabbed the glowing core, pulling it free from the console. The cables sparked like veins torn open. Mira, I need your help. Her eyes widened. What do I do? You're the bridge, he said. Your neural light can stabilize the energy flow. If you connect, you can guide it. Vera's head snapped toward him. Ethan, she's just a child. She's more than that, Ethan said. She's human. Enough to do the impossible. Mira swallowed hard, then reached out. Her hands trembled as she touched the glowing sphere. Immediately, light poured from it into her skin, gold mixing with blue, human pulse merging with alien luminescence. The entire shuttle filled with light. Vor's cruiser loomed ahead, firing again, but this time, the bolts didn't hit. They bent. The energy warped mid-space, curving around the shuttle as if refusing to harm it. What is this? Vor's voice crackled across the comms. Ethan stared in awe. Mira floated slightly in her seat, her eyes glowing with intertwined streams of gold and silver. She's sinking with the ship, he whispered. She is the shield. Vera looked at her daughter, tears shimmering. Mira, can you control it? The girl's voice was soft but steady. Yes, but it's loud. I can feel everything. His ship, his anger, his fear. Then show him something better, Ethan said. Mira closed her eyes. The light around her brightened until the whole cockpit was bathed in gold-white brilliance. The shuttle surged forward, faster than any human or cerulean engine should allow. Energy poured from the core, through Mira, through the ship. The next blast from Vor's cruiser never landed. The energy reversed, folding back on itself. A shimmering wave spread across the void, slamming into the cerulean vessel. The mighty warship flickered, its glowing veins stuttering, darkening, then going still. Inside the cockpit, Ethan gripped the edge of his seat as alarms died one by one. Tell me that just happened. It did, Vera whispered. She reflected the shot. She turned their weapon against them. Mira opened her eyes slowly, the glow fading from her pupils. I didn't destroy them, she said softly. I just made them stop hearing their machines. Vera reached for her hand. That's enough, my light. That's enough. The shuttle drifted through the quiet aftermath. Vor's cruiser hung lifeless, its systems dead, its engines dark. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but grinning. That was the most human thing I've ever seen. Mira tilted her head. Really? I used alien nerves to hack a battleship. Exactly, Ethan said. No rulebook. No limit. Just guts and light. Vera laughed softly, a sound Ethan had never heard before. Humans, she said, shaking her head. You burn the universe and then teach it to hope again. They returned to Earth in silence. The dawn waited for them, soft, golden, alive. When they landed, news had already spread. Across two worlds, people spoke of a human and a cerulean child who had done what neither species believed possible. The Lumen Bridge became more than a machine. It became a story, a legend whispered in the language of hope. Weeks later, standing once again in the mansion's courtyard, Ethan watched Mira walk freely through the garden. The light under her skin pulsed gently with every heartbeat. Vera joined him, her presence calm now, her violet eyes reflecting the sunrise. Vor's fleet is grounded, she said. The Trade Commission is collapsing under investigation. And humanity has just earned the galaxy's attention. Ethan smiled. Not bad for one broken doctor and a stubborn kid. She turned toward him, her expression soft. And a mother who finally believed again. For a moment, they stood in silence as Mira laughed in the distance, spinning slowly in the morning light. "Do you ever think," Vera said quietly, "that maybe the universe tests us just to see who still believes?" Ethan looked at her, eyes bright with quiet pride. "No, I think it waits for someone to build a bridge." Above them, the sky shimmered with faint streaks of gold, like the lingering memory of that battle. And somewhere far beyond sight, the stars whispered what the galaxy would soon remember forever. Humanity doesn't conquer worlds. It connects them. Humanity, F***, yeah, ***.